Welcome back to the Next Best Bet. This is episode 86. The World Series continues, Big Ten football starts, and the NFL season heats up in Week 7 here. I'm Jake Higgins with Brett Levy, as always, and we're going to jump right into the action with our hindsight with Higgins. Now, Brett, I went 2 for 1, but I lost my pick of the pod of that Kansas City Buffalo over. Probably should have checked the weather before I placed that one. How'd you do?
Well, I went over too, but it wasn't the best doubleheader of Monday Night Football. I guess Chiefs Bills was entertaining, a lot of running as you hinted at in that one, and I don't know how anyone's gonna back Dallas moving forward, but they do have Washington this week, so if there's a week to back them, maybe it is this one. I don't know.
It was a wet, rainy day on Monday night in Buffalo, and that definitely affected that over-under, as I don't think either quarterback had over 50 yards passing at the end of the first quarter, and I think even close to halftime, one of them was still under 100 yards. Let's jump into Beginner's Boulevard, though. This is a term that's similar to another that we have previously talked about, taking the price. Now, you may have heard of the term taking the points, which has to do with the spread. This is in terms or in reference to the money line.
Yeah, this would be a money line bet, and if you just think the price is too big for an underdog on the money line, you just, hey, anything can happen any given game, Higgins. And, we saw it with the Nets and the bubbles. They won as like plus 1,800 dogs, right? So, in a certain situation, the price may be good. You just have to take the price.
We saw it as the Marlins making it to the playoffs as well, a team at the beginning of the season that was not expected to. So taking the price with some futures, there may be some value there, or if the exposure is too high on one side, maybe you can find some good price with the underdog. Let's jump into our baseball though, Brett, as we are recording this. Game 2 of the World Series is going on. Dodgers versus the Rays. Not to give a spoiler to our moneyline magic later on in the episode, but Game 1, the Dodgers had pretty handedly after a 6-run inning, just created a load of separation midway through the game. The Rays are up early though, but a 2-run homer by the Dodgers has it 5-2 in the bottom of the 5th as you and I are talking.
Yeah, Blake Snell pitched pretty well. They're pulling him now, so we'll keep our eye on this one as it progresses.
Now, how important is it for the Rays to win Game 2? Because I saw a stat on Twitter earlier that I believe 80% of the time, if you go up 2-0 in a World Series, you end up winning the championship.
Well, then I guess it's pretty important. About it's important enough that you know 3 out of 4 won't come back from that deficit. So I don't know. I think the Rays are built a little differently than most teams, Higgins, and it may be tougher to beat them multiple times in a row. Like they may not be able to climb all the way back, but it may go 2-1, then 3-1, then 3-2, then 4-2. Like it might just not be a straight sweep.
Now, in basketball, you gave us a few hints at how long you thought series were going to go after we saw the Dodgers dominate Game 1 on Tuesday, and we're seeing the Rays with the early start on Wednesday, even though that game's not finalized yet. Can we get a Brett prediction of how many games it's going to go?
Oh, I don't know. I think the Dodgers are the best team in baseball. I honestly I think we both do. And
Yeah, I do too.
so I think it would be tough to bet against them. I think the Rays might get 2 games here though. So I'll say 6 games. 6 games for the Dodgers.
Okay, well, I'm just going to follow what my grandmother's always told me of if there's a Game 7 possibility, they're going to do it. So I'll mark myself down for a Game 7. Who knows? The Rays might surprise us a little bit. I'd love to see it. Why not? Why not get some extra baseball in?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be all for maximizing the baseball. 7 games is what I'm rooting for, but uh, I think the Dodgers are a little bit better here.
I agree. I agree. Now let's get into college football though, because we have games on Thursday night, Friday night, and Saturday. The Big Ten is finally back, and we actually even have a ranked matchup on Friday.
Yeah, actually, one of the biggest games of last season, Illinois upset Wisconsin. I remember that was the first time I noticed Lovey Smith had that huge gray beard. There were a few shocking things on that day, Illinois winning and Lovey's beard, but I'm actually going to find myself on Wisconsin in this one, minus 19 in Oregon, minus 18 and a half in New Jersey at minus 110. So I'm going to save myself that little half point there, Higgins, and take it in New Jersey where I'm at. And for this game specifically, taking the revenge angle. These Wisconsin players are not going to be very happy about what happened last year, and Illinois does not yet have the talent to match Wisconsin. So, a motivated Wisconsin team that's been thinking about that loss for a full year now and pretty much all off season since they've announced they're coming back. They've been thinking about this game, so I'm taking Wisconsin minus 19 on Friday night.
19 is a big spread for a team that got upset by Illinois last year, but I'm sure there's plenty of fuel on that fire to redeem themselves. Just a quick note, Brett. Oregon doesn't offer college football lines, so the lines that I had previously written down were just a different sports book in New Jersey for you. So you
Oh,
found better value, but it was still a New Jersey sports book.
whoops.
Let's move on to Saturday, though, as, like you said, the Big Ten with the Illinois Wisconsin, that's a big matchup. Now, we have some other big matchups Nebraska at number 5, Ohio State. We have other matchups like Penn State versus Indiana, Michigan, Minnesota. There are a lot of Big Ten teams that were given top 25 rankings, Brett, and considering how much we've gotten to see these other teams play and the unknowns with the Big Ten here, I don't know how deserved it is to see like 5 names or so, I believe it is, from the Big Ten in the top 25 without having played a game yet.
Eh, I don't know. I mean, I think Ohio State's a top five team. Um,
I
but
think that, but I mean, the Minnesota game, Minnesota's 21, Michigan's 18. Do they really deserve those spots compared to maybe some mid majors that have actually proved themselves with some quality games or some ACC or SEC teams that have done well? I don't know. I think there's teams that have clearly shown who they are so far compared to unknowns, and you're just giving the unknowns the benefit of the doubt, which it's a weird season already. I just don't like it. It leaves a bad taste in my mouth.
yeah, I mean, I guess it comes down to uh expectations too. Like preseason polls don't matter, but it's what we base the entire season off of. So, um I don't know. It's one of those weird things where I'm not sure what to do. I guess the one that sticks out the most for me that I would agree with what you're saying is Penn State comes in at number 8 and they're going to be without their top running back and their top defensive player and probably player in general, Micah Parsons. So, no Journey Brown, no Micah Parsons, number 8 in the country. Probably going to knock him down a few pegs, to be honest, Higgins. I don't think this is the same Penn State team we thought maybe back in January we'd see.
Well, I think I think you're right. I think Penn State's probably going to fall from that number 8 spot. I also agree with you in the Ohio State's probably appropriately ranked at 5 because I wouldn't be surprised if they're top 3 at the end of the season like they're expected to be. I don't think they deserve to be top 3 without having played a game when there are other teams that have, but that's where they would be likely to see. So I think giving them 5 is appropriate, but Penn State 8, Michigan 18. I don't know. Some of these just feel a little weird. Even the Wisconsin being ranked at 14 like this. I don't know. I just don't like it. But let's get into our ACC picks because you and I made a few picks on the data that we already have seen, the teams we have already seen go out and play. And this North Carolina State versus North Carolina game is intriguing to me because last week North Carolina State played Duke. It was a close one, 31-20, whereas UNC lost in a surprising game against Florida State. So I'm going to take North Carolina State plus 15 in this one because it's another in-state rivalry. North Carolina State's played pretty well. They're both 4-1. But North Carolina State's 4-1 against the spread, and UNC's only 2-2. So I'm taking the team that is covered more often.
Yeah, you know, piggybacking off that FSU UNC game, Higgins,
Mhm.
I'm actually just straight up betting against FSU this week. I'm actually taking Louisville minus 3.5 at FSU. And my reasoning is this is a letdown spot for FSU. They had no business beating North Carolina last week, and they came out and played their best game of the season. We've seen FSU play three different quarterbacks. Their coach has battled COVID. They've had, their defensive tackle opt out, opt back in. So FSU's had so much happening. I'm taking Louisville minus 3.5 simply because I'm just fading FSU this week. Because of, like you said, that huge upset win last week against North Carolina.
Florida State's got to be riding a little too high, a little on cloud nine. They deserve to be knocked back to reality, probably. I think that Louisville minus 3.5 is a good pick. And 15 points to North Carolina State. I think that's just too high. I think that game's going to be closer. I expect it to be a really good game between two top 25 programs.
Yeah, NC State's been better than people expected this year, I think, and kind of cool that their starting linebacker, this kid Wilson, is Bryce Wilson on the Atlanta Braves' younger brother. So, athletes in that family.
Plenty of athletes in that family is absolutely right. Now, I'm staying in the ACC with my other picks as well, Brett. One that I'm taking just because it just left off the page at me is the over under in the Notre Dame Pittsburgh game of 43. Over 43 just makes sense. I mean, Pittsburgh has given up 30 points and 31 points in the past three games, lost all three of them. And then Notre Dame, they average giving up about 11 and a half, 12 points a game, but they let Florida State score 26. So I have a feeling that this will be a little higher scoring than that 43. I think 43 is just really low. Six touchdowns is really low. Notre Dame should win this one easily, I think, although I'm not going to touch the 10.5 point spread because it is in Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh has a weird habit of being a lot more competitive in their home stadium against anybody in the ACC, really. So I think it'll be interesting. I think 43 just it was really really low, and it just spoke to me instantly.
Yeah, I agree 43 is low. What scares me is Notre Dame's score last week. Like I think the
12 to
total
7.
yeah, like so I'm staying far away from that one, but to your point, over 43 is definitely doable between those two teams. Just last week's results scared me too much, Higgins.
I understand that last week was 12 to 7, but it's an anomaly because if you look at the week before that, Notre Dame scored 42 points on their own in a 42 to 26 win over Florida State. The week before that, they won 52 to 0 against South Florida. So Notre Dame has the capability of covering this over on their own. They've already done it once in the past 3 weeks. So I think we will see a reinvigorated offense that had probably got their ass chewed out in the team meetings throughout the week about only putting up 12 points on the board.
Well, I hope so. But you're on one more game in the ACC, so let's jump to Virginia, Miami.
Yes, Virginia, Miami. Now this one, it smelled funny to me. Virginia's 1-3, Miami's ranked 11 and 4-1, and the line's only 12 and a half. Miami minus 12 and a half just feels right to me. I mean, they won last week by 12 against Pitt, so not quite a cover. Before that, they lost to Clemson, but they also would have covered against Florida State, Louisville, and UAB at this 12.5 point line. So they've played pretty well, 4-1. They're playing a bad, underperforming Virginia team that lost to Wake, NC State, and Clemson recently. It's gonna be four straight. Miami's gonna win. It's just by how much. I think it's gonna be two touchdowns.
Yeah, we'll see. UVA lost a lot of talent from a year ago, and that's obviously going to hurt them. So I agree with you. Miami's the better team here. 12 and a half in an ACC game when I'm not 100% sold on Miami like you was too much for me. But if you're a believer in Miami, you got to believe they can beat Virginia by 12 and a half. So I understand the logic there, Higgins.
Absolutely. So that's where I'm at, staying in the ACC with all of my picks on Saturday, but you're going to be heading outside the ACC.
Yeah, I'm hitting on most of the big conferences in action. I'm actually, I didn't really see very many Big 12 lines that I liked. So I'm only touching the ACC, the Big 10, and now the SEC. Uh, Alabama and Tennessee, they're always a big rivalry game. But it hasn't really been a great rivalry game recently. Alabama blows out Tennessee every time they play, and I expect that trend to continue. It's only minus 20 and a half at the sports book. I saw it at Higgins. Now, there's a little added juice. It's minus 115 to keep that under 21, but I'm willing to eat those 5 cents for the half point in this one. And honestly, I really think this will be a four touchdown victory, but if I can get it at under 3 touchdowns, or 3 touchdowns plus 3 extra points, I'm going to be very happy with that and take that.
Yeah, that I saw that line. I was leaning towards Bama too. I mean, it makes sense. I think Bama's going to win by more than 3 touchdowns easy. I expected that line honestly to be up closer to about the 26 and a half, 27 mark of 4 touchdowns instead of 3.
Yeah, I definitely thought it would open up at around 24, and when I saw it was at honestly closer to 21, I was pretty happy. But I could see it getting bet up 2 or 3 points by Saturday, so you may want to get in on Bama early. They're like the Yankees, they're like the Lakers, they're like the Cowboys. Bama's definitely one of those teams that gets bet up a little quicker than others.
Now, you and I have preached, though, to make sure to get your bets in morning of because of the coronavirus uncertainties, and that has burnt you in one of our previous episodes. You just said maybe get in on it early because you could see some line movement. Are you going to get in on it early?
I think for Alabama, betting Alabama, it's a little different because it is such a heavily bet team across the United States that I might have to get this one in early Thursday morning here.
Might have to roll on up to the window, roll tide.
Roll tide on up to the window. Exactly.
There we go. All right, so we have an ACC, a Big Ten, and an SEC for Brett, and 3 ACC picks for me on Saturday. That's not the only thing we have going on Saturday, though, Brett, and I'm not talking about the potential Game 5 of the World Series that would be on Saturday. What I am talking about is the UFC fight between Khabib Nurmagomedov and Justin Gaethje. Now, this is a prize fight. This is a fantastic, highly anticipated fight. Khabib's last fight was against Dustin Poirier back in September of 2019. He is 28 and 0, and he's facing off against Justin Gaethje, who is 22 and 2, and most recently beat Tony Ferguson back in May. This is a highly anticipated fight, very intriguing. Khabib is the current belt holder, and that is partly why he is the favorite at minus 375. However, Gaethje being more recently in the cage has me leaning him, but God, Khabib is he's a different breed of a fighter. There's a reason he's 28 and 0, and he's just a monster in that octagon.
Yeah, this is one of those fights I'll watch. I won't bet on because I'd be on Khabib and minus 375 is just too steep for me. There are other ways to bet it, Higgins. You could bet decisions, you could bet rounds, you could bet all these other ways. I'm just going to enjoy it. I think I'm just going to enjoy watching it and probably about halfway through be covering my eyes and be like, "Oh my god, I can't believe I'm watching this." But it'll be enjoyable for sure and it's definitely like you said, this is a fight to watch for sure.
Now, something that worries me about Khabib is he has already mentioned during the press conference how the next fight that he would want, the only other fight he's really interested in after Gaethje, is to fight GSP George St. Pierre, and I find it weird when you are preparing for this fight and leading up to this fight to already be talking about who you want next. I mean, it's a bold move. It's something that someone that's 28 and 0 would do. I'm not necessarily taken aback from Khabib's abilities to finish this fight because of those remarks. However, I find them interesting. They definitely raised my eyebrow when I first heard them.
Yeah, I mean, it's just part of the fight game. People say shit all the time. I don't know how much of it they actually believe or mean, right? But just to get in the other guy's head, get in their under their skin, or give yourself that little extra bit of confidence that you need to get your adrenaline going, whatever it is. That's why guys do these things, and it also helps promote the fight. Like, I mean, look, we're talking about how disrespectful the comments are on our podcast. I'm sure everyone else is too.
Now, some quick notes because you mentioned method of victory as other ways that you could bet on this fight, is specifically picking knockout or submission or going to decision. Three of Khabib's last five fights ended by submission. The other two were unanimous decisions in Khabib's favor, obviously, because he's undefeated. Khabib's won 10 by submission, 8 by knockout, 10 by decision. Or 10 by submission, 8 by knockout, 10 by decision. Justin Gaethje is 1-0 in submissions, 19-2 in knockout/TKOs, and only 2-0 at the judges' table. So Gaethje makes it kind of seem like it might not go to the judges' table, especially since all of his last five fights ended by knockout. That's a lot of power. Khabib, it split pretty evenly, a third, a third, a third on how it might end. So that's a little scary, I think, if you're going to be looking at method of victory in terms of how it's going to go.
Yeah, this just sounds like, college football Saturdays winding down. Game five is probably winding down right now. It's actually 6-2 in that game. So I'm going to assume there's a
In
game
game two.
five. In game two, yes. So I'm going to assume there's a game five because if it's 1-1, there'll be a
Mm-hmm.
game. So this sounds like how I'm going to cap off my Saturday night, Higgins. What a great Saturday of sports. And to have a fight of this magnitude on top of a college football Saturday where the Big Ten's back and a World Series game, chef's kiss. And then leading into an NFL Sunday, just a great weekend.
I'll definitely find myself on this fight in some way, shape, or form on Saturday. I don't have a read right now on Wednesday night as we are recording. It's a little too far out. I want to see where a little bit more of the money falls, see if there's some adjustments. Like you said, minus 375. That's a little too big for me as well, so I'm going to sit off on that. Maybe I'll pair it with an NFL parlay on Sunday with some big money line dogs, though. Who knows? Might have to put some things together and pick something out by Saturday. But let's jump into our moneyline magic because we just talked about Game 5. Game 7 of the NLCS, which was on Sunday while we were recording, Brett, was an amazing back and forth affair between the Dodgers and the Braves. The Braves got up early, scoring a run in each of the first two innings. Dodgers tied it up in the third, and Atlanta took this lead right back in the fourth. But then the Dodgers just do what the Dodgers do, and they kept responding with their bats.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm going to point to a key decision by Dave Roberts. And he's actually made this same move a few times since, but pinch hits Kike Hernandez, and Kike Hernandez goes deep to tie the game, Higgins.
Now, that was a very big home run. It tied it up at 3-3, and the energy that Hernandez brought back to that dugout, I think, played a large part in how the Dodgers were able to perform afterwards. But then Bellinger hit a home run in the seventh to go ahead, and Julio Urias on the mound for the Dodgers. Oh my God, was he just perfect?
Yeah, literally, I mean, he put zeros up on the board in every category, and that even includes strikeouts. He didn't strike anyone out. So he just had 3 innings, all zeros up there, and he did his job, and he was fantastic. You're right.
I mean, The depth in that bullpen of just young arms that Roberts can use and the different directions that he can really go was amazing. And the fact that he didn't have to try to lean on Kenley Jansen, who's had a little bit of issues, Joe Kelly, who's had some issues. The traditional closer role for the Dodgers has been a little iffy. In fact, he was able to get 3 full innings out of a stud like Urias, who's only going to get better. I mean, I think he's what, 25 years old. Fantastic pitcher on the mound. Amazing game seven. Amazing way for that to finish.
Yeah, no, definitely. Definitely worthy of a money line magic. And, Bellinger's home run, we should mention the celebration there. Although in game one, he did go deep. So I think we survived all the big major scares there. But that was a little worrisome.
Yes, it was. He was a little too amped up, a little too excited when he took that lead in the seventh.
Yeah, I now have seen they've been doing the toe taps though, which I really like. And actually, how about this, Higgins? We gave an update not too long ago, but now it's 6-3. So because I said there's going to be a game five, the Dodgers heard me and they're like, well, we'll put a run on the board real quick right here and shut this guy up. So
They go,
I will
whoa,
stop
whoa,
predicting
whoa,
things.
whoa, 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 slow down. It's only the sixth inning, is what they said. They're like, we're still in this, and the Dodgers bats, they have a lot of power. Until you get that final out, they are in it. Because that first inning that they scored 11 runs in against the Braves back in the NLCS, 10 of those were on 2 outs.
Yeah. Yeah, you
Let's
got to
jump
get him
into
out.
our ad, though, before we jump into the NFL. This episode is being presented by Wild CBD. Wild produces the best tasting edibles on the market using real fruit and all natural flavoring. With flavors inspired by the Pacific Northwest, high quality ingredients, real fruit, and consistent dosing, Wild has become one of the leading cannabis edible producers in the country. Wild's new CBD line currently offers real fruit infused gummies in blackberry, huckleberry, lemon, and raspberry, and CBD infused sparkling water in raspberry, lemon, blackberry, and blood orange. Each gummy is dosed with 25 milligrams of CBD and can be purchased in a bottle of 10 or 20. Wild CBD is offering our listeners 30% off their next purchase from wildcbd.com by using the code POD. That's code POD, P O D, for 30% off your next purchase. Wild CBD products are intended only for use by individuals aged 18 and older. Wild CBD products should only be consumed as directed on the label and should not be used if you are pregnant or breastfeeding. All Wild CBD products are made with ingredients containing 0% THC. Consult with a health professional prior to using Wild CBD in combination with any medications or other dietary supplements. Now, Brett, on to the NFL. When on Thursday, you could be watching the Appalachian State game with college football. You could be watching the presidential debate. You won't be watching game 3 of the World Series because they're taking a day break. Or you could be watching a rivalry matchup between the New York Giants and the Philadelphia Eagles in the race of who is the worst team in the worst division in football.
Who does Appalachian State play again?
Arkansas State?
Arkansas State, yeah. No, that's the answer. Yeah, so I guess sadly I'll be watching Giants Eagles because my fantasy team will depend on it. And I really like the spread here, Higgins. So I guess I'm gonna bet on this thing, and I will be watching this Giants Eagles game. Look, I watched half of Jets Broncos. I can suck up this Giants Eagles. I'm ready for anything.
Hey, you watched half of Jets Broncos. I watched all of Jets Broncos, okay? So
Are
I could
you?
definitely watch all this.
Why are you? Why?
Because I had the Broncos.
Oh, well, okay, so I get it. So yeah, so you were in the percentage of the population that bet on the game and then had to sit through it. You're
Yes.
idiots.
Well, I'm going to be an idiot in this game as well
Me
because even though
too.
I'm a Giants fan, I'm already going to be watching the game, already stressed out. I decided, you know what? It's a rivalry game. Both of these teams' offenses have had a lot of struggles. Both of these teams have had difficulties keeping the other team from scoring the ball, though. And so I think that it's going to be back and forth, and I think it's going to be a close game. These rivalry games in division typically are field goal-ish type games, and so at plus 4.5, I just think that's good value on the Giants.
Yeah, Honestly, I perfectly agree. The Eagles have shown me nothing to be more than a field goal favorite versus anyone, and that includes the New York Giants. So I guess the New York Giants at plus 4.5 are my pick too, because if I don't think the Eagles should be more than a field goal versus anyone, like, I mean, maybe the Jets, they could be more than a field goal, but that's about it. That's about it. The Giants can still move the ball a little bit. I think they're pretty well coached. Joe Judge has looked like he knows what he's doing on the sidelines, and that gives me enough confidence in them. Plus, they're 3-3 against the spread this year, so I'll take them.
Yeah, they're 3-3 against the spread this year. Let's forget about the 1-5, and we're just going to talk about against the spread records now, because that's what matters in the NFC East. They look a lot prettier. The Eagles 1-4-1. They're 2-4 against the spread. So if you're going to go by that, the Giants have played a little better. The Eagles definitely should be the favorites in this game. Even though the Giants are coming off their first win of the season, it was against Washington. It was a tough fought 20-19 game against another bad team, whereas the Eagles, they have two quality losses against Baltimore and Pittsburgh. So I guess if you need to hear a reason to try to take that Philly minus 4.5, if you're listening out there trying to fade us, one, you should have noticed Brett and I are on the same side of this. So the pillars of Brett and Jake should never bet on the same line because we typically lose. You have that going for you. The other part is the Eagles only lost by 2 to Baltimore last week after a garbage time score. And even though the Pittsburgh Steelers had Chase Claypool score 4 touchdowns in that game, the Eagles are still able to put up 29 and only lost by 9. So, two strong AFC North teams that the Eagles played relatively well against, but a loss is a loss.
Well, and I'm going to give you the third point is Lane Johnson's expected to play, and when Lane Johnson plays for the Eagles win. Only 3 losses in Lane Johnson's career as an Eagle, so the Eagles are much better when he's on the field. Now he's often injured. I want to say he had a steroid suspension at one point in his career as well, but when he is on the field, the Eagles are good. So Lane Johnson would give me a little pause, but winning doesn't mean they're going to win by more than 4.5, Higgins. So we could be good even in a Giants loss here.
Yes, I have a feeling Jake Elliott may be the bearer of bad news to the Giants like he has before. And if that's the case, that's within the spread, and I am happy.
Yeah, exactly. Go out there, Giants, and keep it close.
Keep it close. Everyone have fun.
Keep it close. Have fun. Stay healthy.
Break. Okay. Let's get
On
into our
three, on
Sunday
three.
games. Let's get into our Sunday games now, Brett. I mentioned the Steelers as a team that the Eagles recently played. This could very well actually be the game of the weekend on Sunday. Pittsburgh undefeated, 5-0, facing off against the Tennessee Titans, undefeated, 5-0. This is the game that was originally supposed to happen, but Tennessee had coronavirus cases and it had to get pushed. And you heard a lot of discontent from the Steelers having their bye week moved without them being to blame at all. So even though Pittsburgh is the slight underdog because they are on the road at +1 and +105 on the money line, even though Tennessee has looked very good since they have come back from the coronavirus, and A.J. Brown is now healthy, and Derrick Henry had an over 200-yard rushing game last week. The Pittsburgh Steelers should have an edge to want to beat the Titans in this because of them rearranging their schedule, because Pittsburgh was responsible and Tennessee, in their eyes, may not have been. Pittsburgh is going to go out and get this win in the battle between two undefeated teams. One team is going to be left standing undefeated, and it is going to be the Steelers. I am calling it +105 on the money line.
Yeah, I mean the Steelers are. I've been saying have been the best team in football through 6 weeks,
They're
and
good.
I'm a big fan of what they're doing. I am staying away from this one because the Devin Bush injury is going to be an impact. It's going to be their first full game without their middle linebacker. He's a stud. I expect them to find a replacement for him either on the trade market, maybe try and get creative, bring in like a hybrid safety kind of player. Um, I mean, they already have probably the best one in Minka Fitzpatrick, but you never know. They've had so much success with him. Maybe they find another one. But outside of that injury, Higgins, I think the Steelers do come away with this one because, like I've said, they've got Juju doing almost nothing. They've been riding the Claypool wave. They've found ways to get the offense working. The defense has looked pretty strong. Now, you mentioned the Eagles game where they allowed the Eagles to come back late, but the Eagles were never in it.
Hmm.
It's just a score thing for betters. But watching the game, the Eagles were never in it. So they've put these games away, and I like that Steelers pick a lot. That just got to play devil's advocate a little bit for all our listeners. The Devin Bush injury does concern me in this one.
It does. Maybe they should take Derek Watt, who's listed as questionable right now, at the fullback position. Has some brothers who are familiar with playing an
Defense.
outside linebacker, defensive end type role. I'm sure there's a little bit of shared family
I bet
knowledge
he's
there.
hit someone once or twice in that family. Like, I'm
I
just
think so.
guessing you've probably hit someone before.
It obviously not equivalent to Devin Bush, not the same type of player, obviously, but might be able to fill in a spot if needed to. I'm sure he's got some family ties at defense. It translates over a little bit. Well, I am on another game, Brett, in the NFL on Sunday. At least as of right now. I'll probably find some more on Sunday by Sunday. But the only other game that spoke to me from this slate was the 49ers versus Patriots game. The over-under is set at 43.5, and kind of like with that Notre Dame Pittsburgh line I mentioned with college football, this over-under to me just seems suspiciously low, especially when you consider Jimmy Garoppolo is now back with San Fran. Cam Newton came back with New England. I understand they played a weird game last week against Denver, but it's the Mile High Stadium. It's Denver. It's really weird sometimes. Sorry, that game was played in New England. But 18-12, that offense is going to be refocused. 49ers scored 24 points on their own, so if New England can get 3 touchdowns, that covers it. 43.5, it's just too low. Take the over.
Yeah, I don't have a concrete bet in this one, but I am leaning San Francisco +2. The line was a little surprising for me because
Mm-hmm.
San Francisco's played two East Coast games while they were very beat up, and now granted they were against the Jets and Giants, but San Francisco was playing their B team in those games, and they were the dominant team in both of them. So normally, I'm a little worried in the West to East Coast travel thing, but in this one, it doesn't even scare me at all. And New England did not look good last week against Denver, and I
Or the
think
week before against Kansas City.
or the week before against Kansas City, but that's Kansas City. Everyone looks good against everyone. No one looks good against Kansas City, um, but
Except the Raiders.
well, actually, you know what? That's a fair point. The Raiders look great. Uh, but the 49ers in this one being 2 point dogs, I honestly could make the argument they should be favorites in this one. So I'm leaning toward the points here. San Francisco +2. Not ready to make that bet. Not telling you to go make that bet on Thursday like I am with Alabama either. So just hold your horses there. But over 43.5, certainly reasonable. I expect the Patriots offense to be better than last week.
Yeah, the 49ers and Patriots defenses are both very notable, so that does scare me with this over-under, but I think the 49ers having gotten healthy, having a week under their belt with their quarterback back with them, I expect they'll respond with a better offensive production than 24 points. I think they'll get more than just 3 touchdowns, and we'll see how the Patriots respond after that brutal loss to Denver, where Bill Belichick had to have ripped that team apart afterwards, I would imagine. So we'll see how that goes. I'll probably have some other Sunday picks, though, that I'll give out on our Instagram, though. Make sure to follow us on our social media at NBBPod on Twitter, at Next Best Bet on Instagram, and the Next Best Bet Facebook page and YouTube channel. Make sure to follow us and subscribe on YouTube as well. Brett, before we get out of here, let's do our Levy Lock and Pick of the Pod. Now, you and I both lost our Levy Lock and Pick of the Pod last week. What do you know?
Yeah, I mean, it happens, right? It's part of sports betting, right? You're never gonna go 100%. We try and go 53%, and we walk out winners.
Absolutely. I think I will start with my pick of the pod, though, Brett. We talked about this NC State versus UNC game. It's an in-state rivalry. North Carolina State has played really well. They're 4-1 against the spread. I think plus 15. 15 points is just too much in this matchup, I think, between two top 25 teams that are 4-1 in NC State's case and 3-1 in UNC's case. I think that this is going to be a very good matchup and is not going to be more than a two-touchdown game.
Yeah, and sticking in the ACC, I am going to bet on Louisville minus 3.5 versus Florida State. Florida State, this is a letdown spot for sure, and Louisville only having to lay 3.5 here. I think they get that done. One quick thing I did want to note, Higgins, there's another game in the NFL that kind of caught my eye really quickly, and it's Detroit Atlanta. I could make the argument that Detroit should be the favorite in that one as well. They're currently 2.5 point dogs, but I just wanted to throw that out there. I mean, Atlanta's 2.5 point favorites, really?
Yeah, that game smelled weird to me. The home field advantage of 3 points, if you take that away, it's a pick'em game, which is actually what's going on with the Dallas-Washington game. I think just no one has a read on whether Andy Dalton can actually run that Dallas offense. Washington's not any better, so flip a coin, whatever side it lands on, take that for the Dallas-Washington game, or just better decision, just completely stay away.
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting. I could definitely see myself waking up Sunday morning and being, you know what, Brett, you're right. 2.5 points. What the hell has Atlanta done to earn that? So I don't know. Just stuck out to me, but I just wanted to throw that out there.
All right, there you go. The Levy Lock, the pick of the pod, and even a Levy tease, it seemed like, in a sense, with another suspicious line that caught his eye that he's not on, but he's going to be watching a little
Yeah,
bit.
we'll see how I do on my college football Saturday, and how Sunday's going, right? But that one's definitely interesting. I definitely think that one's an interesting line.
Absolutely. Make sure to follow us on our social media, like I said, at MBBPod on Twitter, at Next Best Bet on Instagram, and the Next Best Bet Facebook page and YouTube channel. This has been episode 86 of the Next Best Bet. For Brett, I'm Jake. We'll talk to you again after the weekend.